YouTube, welcome to my channel. My name is Sumin and I'm an illustrator. And today I will be showing you how I painted this painting. So this is done in gouache, which is sort of like a newer medium for me. I am more used to watercolor, but gouache is very similar to watercolor in terms of like how it works. So I'm excited to show you the whole painting process. But before we get into that, this is actually a recreation of a digital painting that I did earlier this year. And I wanted to explain sort of the thought process of how I changed the original painting to this and why, because I think that would be just really interesting to see. So if you want to see how I created this painting, keep on watching. Okay, so here is my original painting on my iPad. And I want to talk about certain things that I liked about this painting and I didn't like about the painting. So what I liked about this painting, the first one is the contrast in terms of the value. So I really like how I made the main focal point really lit while keeping everything else around it, so mostly the background, really dark. I really like creating dynamic paintings by using different values and colors and interesting compositions, and I really focused on pushing that value from really light to really dark. But it's also something that I didn't like about this painting, which I will get into, but I really like what I did here with the lit face and the dark background. And another thing I really liked about this is the color choice. So again, with the contrast, I wanted to use complementary colors, and I used the reddish like orange colors for the fruits and the lips, and like even like the subtle eyeshadow on her eyelids. They're a little bit like orangey. And the reflection in the mirror, they're all like reddish orange color, and I used darker sagey green for that contrast. And another thing that I liked about this is how I rendered the pomegranates. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out because it looks very complicated with all the seeds inside of the pomegranates, but I did want to kind of push myself, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Still life painting is one of my favorites, and I don't really get to do that often, so that was really interesting to paint. I feel like the rendering is very like mid. It's not really like super stylistic or really realistic. I feel like it's kind of in between. So like I don't really like this part along the jaw, this forearm. I do like the softer rendering here on the wrist area and like the shoulders, but overall I think I could improve it more by either pushing it like super far into like really soft detailed rendering style or keep it really stylistic. So I'm still figuring that out, but that is one thing that I wish I changed. Another thing that I wish I improved on is the reflection in the mirror. So it is a yokai that I drew or decided to draw, and to be completely honest, it was more of a stylistic choice than a choice based on symbolism or meaning. So I feel like not 100% comfortable with that because I am unfamiliar with yokais in general, and just it's not really my culture. So I feel like in order for me to represent something that is heavily based on a certain culture, I should have a better understanding of like what that means and be able to represent it with a certain level of confidence. And I don't feel that about this. So the whole like meaning of this painting is that you have an an enemy within yourself. So you look into the mirror, you look at yourself, and sometimes it's yourself that is holding you back from success. I feel like it's not really representing that right now with the yokai in the reflection, and I honestly chose the yokai for like visual purposes. I thought it would look scary, with like the teeth and like the big like grin, like mouth, wide mouth, and the second set of eyes and the horns and everything. Like, it looks scary, and I think yokais are supposed to be demonic. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's like the reason why I chose this, and because I am not confident in the usage of it, I wanted to change that for the new painting. And the last thing I wanted to change kind of ties back into the second point. The pomegranate pieces, I wanted to just add something that's visually interesting. And pomegranates, I think, look so cool with all the seeds, and it adds to like the color contrast again. Pomegranates are red, and red/green is what I was going for the color combination. So that is the reason why I chose pomegranate. But again, I feel like it doesn't really add that much to the painting meaning-wise. So I wanted to use something else for the new painting that will serve that purpose of adding that, symbolism into the whole painting to add to that story while adding that interesting visual elements.
Hello, I'm just editing right now, and I just remembered that I forgot to mention one thing. I talked about how I really like the values of the original painting, but I also don't like it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The reason why I also don't like it is because my original plan was to push it even further. My hero is Janice Sung. Her art is just so inspiring to me, and I own a couple of her paintings that have like really, really pale, almost like white, like negative space figures with really, really dark background, almost black. And I wanted to go for something more like that, but I ended up adding some colors to that. So for the new painting, I wanted to try what I was initially going for, which is a really, really pale figure against really, really dark background.
So now let's get into how I actually painted the final painting. So I did the sketch off camera on a piece of regular printer paper, letter size. I don't know what it is, but I think sketching on actual paper feels so much better than on an iPad or a screen. I feel like I can control the lines a little better. Since I don't have a light box, I use this little trick. I put the paper with the rough sketch on a well-lit window and place the watercolor paper on top of it to trace. Here's my cat being really cute, so of course I need to show her off. It's time to start painting now. Even though I did a color study on my iPad beforehand, I'm still not sure how it's going to turn out. I spray some water on the paper first to help smooth out the paint and keep it more translucent for now, since I'm putting down the base colors and want to see the pencil lines show through. I started blocking out the face, but realized I'd have to paint the arm too, so that's what I'm doing here. The color of the skin is looking a little darker than I expected. Maybe the paint will dry a little lighter, but I might have to layer a lighter color on top later. For the reflection, to keep it separated from everything else, I'm keeping it darker and more desaturated. The paint dried the same color, so I'm going in with a lighter color on top. Something I'm continuously working on, and I've mentioned this in my other videos many times, is being okay with accepting the entire painting process as is. I tend to think that every step I take needs to be perfect rather than steering and maneuvering as I go. If I'm not happy with something, I try to shift the focus away from disappointment and toward excitement at the opportunity to problem solve and fix my mistakes. Art is subjective and you just gotta trust the process, I guess. I like adding flesh tones to the cheeks, nose, and lips. I find that's just enough detail to add some interesting texture to the face without making it too detailed. I first put down the light wash, blend it out with a clean, slightly damp brush, and add more saturated color on top to build up. Now let's move on to the hair. I used a much more muted gray color for the hair during my color study, but I changed the plan last minute and am now going for dark teal. I knew the moment I put down the first stroke that it was too saturated of a teal and that I wanted it to be paler and perhaps lighter. I'll probably layer a lighter color on top once it dries. That's one of the great things about gouache, being able to cover up with opaque paints on top. For brushes, I like to use about 3 to 4 different ones, a larger flat brush for blocking in colors, a smaller flat brush, a small round brush, and a tiny round brush for lines and details. Brushes can be really expensive, so I prefer investing in a few high quality ones that will last. Just like the color of the skin, I'm keeping the hair in the reflection darker and more dull. Now that I have most of the colors applied, I'm blocking in the background in black before adding the final details. 9 out of 10 times, I mix my own black using colors like red, green, and blue. I find that pure black straight from the tube can look a little bit too stark. But this time I'm using pure black because I want the background to be that deep, dark black to make it stand out more. I want to create more contrast between the background and the rest of the painting. This tiny little brush is the newest addition to my collection. I really needed something to add small, fine details, so I grabbed this one. This is my first time using it and I enjoy it. Although I wish I had one with longer bristles to create really smooth and elongated lines. Perhaps that's the next brush I'll add to my collection. Painting eyes is so fun but also very difficult. Eyes are such prominent features and you can see so much through someone's eyes that I want to make sure they align with the emotion of the subject. It's interesting how the eyes are such a small part of your body, yet they hold so much meaning. I guess that's why people say the eyes are the windows to the soul. I'm revisiting this area now because I feel like it blends in too much with the hand resting on the mirror. I also want to warm it up a tinge, so I'm going over it with taupey, warmer gray. Today we're finishing off the painting by adding some final details. Now that it's winter, I have such a short period of sunlight during the day. I started painting when the sun was still up and it got darker within probably half an hour. After adding the black, the background in the reflection stands out a little bit too much, so I'm covering it with another layer of darker color. It felt like the reflection was taking attention away from the main subject, so this will create more depth. Moving on to the hair, this is the part I was dreading the most. I find painting hair to be so difficult because I'm not sure whether to go super detailed or keep it more rough and loose. For this painting, I'm keeping it one flat color but with some strokes to show how it flows. I'm happy with this direction for this painting, but I definitely want to practice painting hair in different styles to figure out what I like the most. Now that everything else is done, it's time to add some sparkles. I got this gold paint from Japan and I've been dying to try it out. If you want to watch my full Japan stationery/art supplies haul, I'll link that video in the description. I really like how opaque it is. It has chunky, glittery bits that add interesting texture. But because of those, it's not as smooth as normal paints. I added some water to make it smoother, but it loses that chunky glitteriness. I want to try it more with different consistencies to test it out. So I thought I was done yesterday, but my husband suggested that I add even more gold chains in the background. I really like that idea, so we're going to do a little experiment to see if I actually like it. Whenever I want to test something out, I always use my iPad. It's so easy to add and undo things without using any resources. I'm really liking the chain addition in the background, so let's add them in. When I first came up with the gold chain idea, I envisioned it as a way to literally and metaphorically connect the main subject with her reflection. If you look closely, you'll notice gold chains on the wrist of the figure in the reflection as well. By adding even more chains in the background, I wanted to highlight the complex relationship one has with their own self. here is the completed painting. So this is the finished painting, and I am very happy with how it turned out, even though the process was very turbulent. So just like other painting videos that I've done, I want to talk about the 3 things that I like about this and 3 things that I wish I could improve on. So the first thing I like about this is the new composition. I guess composition wise it didn't really change, but I did change a lot of the drawing itself, and I like that I changed the face in the reflection, especially like the eyes. I really like that this figure is looking directly at you while the reflection is looking at her. It creates a very interesting story, whereas as a viewer you feel connected to the figure because it's directly looking at you, but this is sort of like a representation of like the reflection of yourself always looking into you because it's part of you. So I think that adds a lot to the main meaning behind this painting. So before starting this painting, I wanted to push the contrast even more between the background and the figure. So I really like that I made the figure very pale and keep the background pretty much just pure black. So I think that creates a really interesting contrast. And I really, really like the gold paint. This is my first time using a paint like that, but it just adds like in person when you look at it, it's textured. Like you can see that the gold paint is different than everything else. So I really like the contrast that creates. And 3 things that I wish I could improve on. One of them is maybe the hair treatment. I am not completely not happy with it, but I think there is definitely room for improvements. I think hair in general is very tough. I think you can go like really, really detailed, but you can also go like really rough. And finding the balance between the 2 has been a little bit challenging for me, not just for this painting, but in general. Sort of, finding your own style, especially when it comes to hair, I find it a little bit difficult. So that is something that I want to continue working on. And the second part is how I rendered the face in the reflection. I think I just don't know how I feel about it. I'm not completely unhappy. I am not completely unhappy with it, but I'm also not completely happy with it. I think it's just like the hair, it's something that I need to continue practicing and just see how I feel. I think also the angle, the perspective being a little bit different than what I'm used to, which is like head on, like the figure on the top. Yeah, I had like no problem like painting this face, but when it comes to the reflection, because the perspective is so different, I think I had a hard time just like knowing what to do. I think I just have to practice different angles. And honestly, surprisingly, I don't have a third point of what I want to change about this or what I want to improve on. I think it's been a while since I've been happier with the painting than unhappy. Usually when I paint something, I see a lot of parts where I want to change or improve on, and I'm just not like 100% happy with it. And I think I will never be 100% happy with anything. But I think this is one of the first times where I feel really good about something that I created than bad about it, if that makes sense. So I feel more positive about this painting, which is good. But yeah, I think instead of like pointing out something I want to improve on, I guess I just want to paint more and practice more and just try different things to understand what I like painting. But I would love to hear what you guys think about this painting compared to the original painting. And I would love to, yeah, hear your thoughts. And if you have any tips on gouache, let me know in the comments. And I have another painting like this that I am working on, and hopefully I get to make a video about it as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!